Cinderella Chats. I'm your host, Cinderella Field. Yes, that's really my name, along with your co-host, Sandy Hunter. We are so excited to be here to share some insight about life, love, and relationships. So let's get to it. Hi, Sandy. How are you?
Well, great. How are you? It's been just a little bit since we chatted.
A week. Back in the studio. And, you know, I've had a lot of time to think about the last conversation we had about why get married. Beverly Willett and I talking about why get married. And then, I mean, pretty much the whole I would say a big part of the conversation, we talked about divorce because divorce is such a big thing these days.
Moneymaker. Huge moneymaker.
Well, I know, but it's a huge pain maker too.
Absolutely.
You know, and it doesn't just affect the couple involved. If you've been in a longer term marriage and you have children, it affects the children, it affects your friends, it affects everything. It affects belongings that you had, memories that you made, the history that you have between the two of you. And if you have children, the family, the extended family, I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
And that length of time that you're married, it's so hard because I think so many emotions are running wild, and all of a sudden somebody is there one day and gone the next. So normalcy is gone. So,
oh my gosh,
as the divorcee, male or female, especially the one that's left behind with the children, the difficulty is just, it skyrockets. Because when there's kids involved, 9 times out of 10, one parent is left as the primary custodian of the kids. I would say, I'm not going to say statistically nowadays, but before it used to be that mom always had the primary custody of kids and dad was the every other weekend dad. Okay. And that's not so much now anymore because now they're on a 50-50 split usually. But here's the thing. Try being already emotionally spent by losing the person that you depended on, that had your back, that you had a commitment with, that you were given a covenant under God with, and have that stripped from you. Now, not only are you having to pick up the pieces for yourself, but now you're having to pick up the pieces for your children too. You can tell me about that. What's it like?
Oh,
I didn't have a kid whenever I was divorced. Oh, well, no, I did, but he was little bitty.
How old was he?
8 months.
Okay. Yeah, he was a baby.
He had no idea.
No. Well, mine were not little bitty.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, that divorce is the most traumatic experience I've ever had. And I know what my children went through because I was the one that was left here to deal with it. Right. And there was another person involved in the whole process. It was very, very, very traumatic. And one thing that I would say to people that go through a divorce, don't date while you divorce. Don't date while you divorce. I mean, no one even knew that I was going through a divorce on Facebook, and I had to shut down pretty much everything. Because I was devastated. And I don't think that people really knew how devastating it was to me because I tried to stay to myself.
Well, you had kids to think of too.
I had children to think of, but I didn't. I know what they saw me go through affected their hearts as well so badly and affected them. And I cried every day for 7.5 months. I would not even get out to go to the grocery store until it was close to closing time for the grocery store because I didn't want to run into anyone because I was afraid that I would lose it emotionally.
Sure.
That's just the truth. And dealing with the attorneys, the attorney, huh?
How many years were you married? I want our listeners to know.
27 before he left.
27. That's a long time.
But before it was over, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard to imagine the person that got up every morning at the same exact time and went in, got in the shower, brushed his teeth, and left work, and then came home between the same exact times.
Right.
I mean, it was just, I mean, it was.
It'd have to be difficult. I just can't imagine having that habitual state in your household and mind. I'm sure you have difficulties, but in one's mind, I would think you would think, well, we're in a covenant marriage. This person's never going to break that covenant. We may have issues, but I don't think you were ever prepared. How can one ever prepare for something like that?
I don't think that you can. So that's another thing that, before you and I ever started this, I mean, God told me from the very beginning, the day that he left here, that I want you to stand up, Cinderella, not just for your marriage, but for marriages everywhere. And I really didn't understand what that meant because I personally had not been through a divorce. My parents had, but I did not know exactly what that meant. But as I went through it and got through it, I don't even know if you ever really.
Do you ever really get through it all? I mean,
I don't think so, Sandy. I really don't.
I don't think you do.
No, I mean, it gets easier just like, but I think it's even tougher than a death because all the things that you have to deal with. I mean, all of a sudden you can't talk about, Christmases or 4th of July's or good memories or just the history of the things that you did together, even with your children, because everybody is so upset.
Right.
And then you lose a whole nother part of an extended family. It's a very bizarre kind of thing. And then you have the attorneys telling you one thing, but then doing another, gaslighting the dickens out of you. I wouldn't want my worst enemy to have to go through it. I just wouldn't. And then when there's another person involved, and
which I think is just terrible. I mean, that just adds salt to the wound. I don't care.
Don't do it. You just shouldn't do it. No. And you certainly shouldn't put it on social media. You should be what's that saying? Quiet as a dove and sly as a snake. I mean, if you're going to do it,
be quiet about it.
Be very, very quiet about it because it affects things. It makes a divorce more costly. It makes everybody, it upsets.
Okay, so what about your children? Your children see that stuff.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely, they see it.
And then they start forming their own opinions. And then they start, seeing the things that happen throughout the marriage. I come from a divorced family. I know exactly what that feels like as a child. First of all, you end up having your own abandonment issues. I had abandonment issues with my dad leaving, but I did have issues. And as a grown adult, that affected me. I didn't trust men when I first started dating. When people would say that they were going to do things, I never truly believed them. And my very first marriage I had it was just completely full of lies. So that didn't help matters. So I was a very broken person. I was very broken when my husband met me. I just didn't have no belief in marriage or men. I didn't.
Well, I think a lot of people, because I was born in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And I know that you were born a few years later.
I was born in 69.
Yeah. So you were born in the 60s. So, a lot of people that were born then, as,
Summer
I am woman, hear me roar. Right. Do anything you want to.
Burn your bras.
Burn your bras, and you can do the same thing that men are doing, and la, 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 la. So
something shifted.
Well, yes. And knowing what we know now, mm-hmm. because of the internet and because of everything that's been exposed thus far with the current administration, and just has caused people, because of COVID, to really look at things and look for indicators of reasonings as to why it happened. Mm-hmm. We know a lot of this was intentional.
Absolutely. And a lot of it was just Satan getting brazen.
Well,
I mean,
yes,
in
and
those
destroying the
in
family.
the early times, they didn't, but he found a loophole. There was a loophole in a certain generation. And I believe that it started in the 60s generation. That's when the spirit and the freedom of free love and drugs and all of that were heightened. UC Berkeley, the whole entire campus was nothing but a bunch of pot smokers at one point in time. Nothing against pot smokers. I'm just saying, in my own opinion, that's when that was their, what I want to say, social media. It was their social media was real. They loved any and everybody, and they had free sex with any and everybody.
And protest.
And marriage was not even talked about. Most of them lived in camps where they all had free willed with each other. You know what I mean? So
but they weren't burning flags, and they weren't doing the things that they're doing today, right, as openly.
The summer of love, that whole generation. And that's just because freedom of expression. There were a lot of things that were coming into play. You know what I mean? Women, especially, were growing bolder and stepping out. I mean, if you look back then, you had the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was actually a woman going out and making a career for herself. You have all these things that are being portrayed in Hollywood as women are looked at more sexually. And so that whole freedom, that whole movement came into play. Abortions, that's when abortions were really put into place. It's my body. I can do whatever I want to. I can go have sex with 15 different men. And if I get pregnant, I can take care of it any way I want. Those movements come into play. You had Madame O'Hare, wasn't that her name, that ended up getting the Bible taken out of the school systems. I mean,
I don't remember who she was.
Yeah, she had all that, took it all the way to the Supreme Court and had all that stuff removed. So it was almost like Satan was just waiting on the perfect group to come through. The June and Ward Cleavers were gone. Gone. Now here we have Janis Joplin, who was a huge person, but she lived with another woman for 6 years. So all of these people are seeing, all these young minds are seeing all this stuff. So I think about that area of time, marriage was already starting to be attacked. I think it started
but it didn't just attack marriage, it attacked the family.
Oh, the family.
Because, I mean, that's why they say what they say in church. Evangelicals say that if you can get the marriage, you can get the family. And Absolutely. If you can get that, you can take the world down.
Absolutely.
I mean, and so that's why I really believe, and that's, Beverly and I talking about just having mentorship. I'm going to tell you something. People are really disappointed. Younger people are very, very disappointed about the way things are going now with the openness with social media, the phone in your hand, dating, commitments. I've talked to a lot of them. I mean, people will just start telling me when I'm out and about because my car, they'll start asking me things about my car and, well, what is that really? And even young men in their early 20s, because guess what? They want a relationship with someone. Sure. But they say that women have they want a guy, the women today want a guy that's already established, and young men are not established because it's been so emphasized, get a degree, establish a career for women. Because, women that didn't, just like myself, I took care of, my whole focus was my husband, family, his career, kids. My family. And I did some things here and there, but still I would lay them down when something occurred that was super important in my family. I just would. Right. So, but they're taught today that no, you don't do that. So men are very frustrated because they're just like, what do we do? What do we do? I want to talk about that. And what about my friends that look at pornography all the time and they introduce me to it? La, 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 la. Right. They go into all of that stuff because then their expectations about attraction and sex totally changes.
Well, yeah, they're totally there. It's an illusion because, I mean, let's be real. You can have sex with whoever, but once it's done, what's left? What
I
is
know.
there?
I know. And that's what happens when I don't know because I don't look at pornography, but I mean, from the statistics that I have read, and I did 6 months of investigating and researching all of that. And it just changes the way that you think about everything and you see a woman differently. I'm talking about from a man's perspective. And women do pornography as well. So it's not just, I mean,
Right.
it's so confusing. And
It's heart-wrenching.
young people are confused. And then people that are our ages that go through divorces and then they start dating. I mean, it doesn't work anymore. People are getting on dating sites and, I mean, what can you learn on a dating site?
I had a friend tell me, I've got several friends that are in their 40s, early 50s, and they're single. I kept 4 right off the top of the head. And I wouldn't swap places for them for anything. The things that they have seen, went through, and discover on some of these dating sites is unreal. I had one of my girlfriends, bless her heart, she actually decided to give a Christian site, Plenty of Fish. I think that's what it was called. It's a Christian website. Anyway,
Plenty of Fish?
No, yeah, I think that's what it's called. Anyway, they fill out this Christian questionnaire, and all of this good stuff. Well, she met somebody and she thought he was, they had the same likings, they had the same beliefs. And so she said, sure, I'll take you, let's go to dinner. We'll meet in a public place. She said, I kid you not, I pulled up at the restaurant and he come riding up on a bicycle.
I think we've talked about this before. But I mean, that still just makes me
totally
laugh.
shocked. She goes, you just don't know the people, and come to find out, got in there and everything that he had put in his profile was all geared to what women he thought would want to hear because he had no job. He was living on a friend's couch and he was driving a bike because his truck got repossessed. So he basically had nothing to offer. You know what I mean? I thought, buddy, before you log on this site and create a profile, want to meet someone, don't you think you probably should have your own ducks in a row?
Well, but people don't. And that reminds me of people are finding people before they get a divorce too on dating sites.
And that's disgusting.
Even Christian dating sites.
I know it's disgusting. I don't know how you can do it. As a Christian, okay, so let's just get real. As a Christian, you're watching TV. I'm sitting there with my husband. Somebody nice looking comes on and whatever's happening is in some way, shape, or form not something that we should be watching, I'll turn the channel. He's the same way. We'll be watching TV, something happens, and he'll say, ooh, don't need this, click. Because that tool that we have in our hand can do so much to a marriage. That phone you have in your hand can do so much to your marriage. That laptop, that computer time, and it can be just listening to a podcast. Just let's even talk about the podcasts that are out there now are crazy.
Yeah.
Some of them are just
unless you're listening
podcasts.
To ours.
Exactly. Well, some are just sex-driven podcasts that they
really?
talk about different things you do in the bedroom. I'm like, who comes up with this smut? I can't even wrap my head around that kind of stuff. But yes.
They probably have hundreds of thousands of followers too,
and
I
it's
bet
disgusting.
you. Yeah.
Well, and that has to do with, again, whatever makes you feel good.
Do it.
Do it. Let's just go down those. People out there should really go down. Yes, people out there should really go look at Satan's 11 commandments. Where we have 10, he has 11. He had to outdo God, so he has 11. Go look at them and read them. For your own, you can Google them. Heck, you've got a phone in your hand. Just pick it up and Google it. Google Satan's 11 commandments and tell me what you think. Tell me if they are not geared for the here and now. They are.
Well, I'll have to put them on the website because, so that people can go there and listen to it.
Yes.
But talking like we talked the last time that we were together, and when I talked to Beverly about mentorship, I mean, what do you think some of the things that can be done to change some of this stuff that's
Well,
going on?
I'm going to tell you my opinion. Your mentorship is only going to come through the church. There's just not that many people out there that are willing to step out on their own and speak the truth and speak it hardcore. Even the church has a problem with that.
Okay, so what can we do? Okay, so this is where I go with this, okay? Because I've told you before, and I've made it very clear that I really believe that this is what God wants me to do. And I'm not going to stop. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody listen to me. I'm not going to stop.
She's not going to stop.
No, I'm not, because
it is what it is.
It is what it is. And for years and years, I would throw the covers when God would tell me, why haven't you started it? You know that I told you this when I met you and you were doing my lashes. And when he would tell me, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I went and had, when I went to Bible college for that semester, and I went and talked to the pastor and said, am I really supposed to talk about divorce and marriage and the things that are going on in our society today? And that person said, absolutely. I have prayed about this, and you are the one that's supposed to do it. But Sandy, I'm going to tell you something. It's been very difficult for me. You know that we have scheduling issues all the time.
Mm-hmm. Satan don't want it done.
No, and things happen, and it's just like it's just like I'm fighting against forces that I have no control over. So I'm driving, and I talk to God about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I was driving down the road the other day. This is when I know that there's just no accident, when I know for sure that I'm getting an answer. And I ask him, you've got to show me that I need to continue this because it's hard. Well, he introduced me to Beverly Willett, that introduced me to Coalition for Divorce Reform, and Chris Gerstein. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I have been given an opportunity there.
Which I think is great.
Yes, but I mean, I have to develop it in the state of Oklahoma. And I just think about just the conversation that I had with Governor Stitt and the two women that followed me to the restroom. But I'm driving down the road the other day, and I'm just like, God, really, really? I mean, why can't I just do something else? I mean, I can do other things. I don't have to do this, right? And so in my car, I only listen to Christian radio and pastors. But at this time, it was about 4:45, and I was headed to have my lashes done. And I can't remember if it was Wall Builders Live or something else, but the phone rang. I was really into the conversation. The phone rang. I had to answer it. So I'm on Bluetooth, so it stops. Now, remember, I'm having this conversation with God all the way, down the road. Why do I have to do this? Why do you want me to do this? You're going to have to show me that you're going to have to confirm it. And so as soon as I hang up, and I think it was my daughter that called, the guy was interviewing this guy that was talking about why covenant marriages did not even get past where it needed to get past to vote on it in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're like, oh, ding, ding, winner, winner.
Well, not just that. I went to Dusty Devers. I've tried to contact him many times. He's the one that wrote the bill. We've talked about it, that Speaker Mike Johnson and his wife have a covenant marriage. It was just an option, but it didn't get any further. And you know what the guy said? It's because the divorce attorneys don't want it done. Because the divorce attorneys are making sure that the legislators don't proceed with it. Well, come hell or high water, Cinderella is going to do it.
Yeah,
And people may
it's a
not
funny
like
thing.
what I have to say. That's too bad because something needs to change.
Sure.
Something needs to change where our families are concerned. Something needs to change where divorce is concerned. And by golly, it's about to happen. Then this is what happened the next day. This was very interesting. If people, and before that, I saw something on Fox one evening or one morning, I can't remember when, but that people are now buying 20 and 30-year-olds are buying flip phones because they want, and they're not getting on dating sites. They no longer want to get on dating sites. They want to meet people through their own environments. They know that the phone is not doing them any good or giving them what they need.
Absolutely. I can totally agree with that.
Okay. So going back to the next day, I get up and I need to go to Hardscapes to get some rocks for my fountain outback. Okay. Some bigger rocks. So I'm there and I have to drive my car back there. You have to weigh your car first and then you go pick out your rocks. And I'm over there picking out my rocks by color and coordination and all this stuff. I can't just, because they have to be a certain shape because I know where it needs to go and all that stuff. And there's this guy that pulls up on this forklift and I can't really see him until I look over and I go, yes. And he goes, hey, I just wanted to check and make sure that you don't need anything. Are you doing okay? And I said, yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for checking. And I think he's going to go on about his business. And he goes, well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing great, but can I ask you a question? He goes, the stuff that's on your car, life, love, and relationships, the Cinderella chat stuff, what is that about? I said, it's about life, love, and relationships. It's about a person's worth and value and knowing that and what God has given them, that his or her worth and value, which people have forgotten about that today.
Sure.
That's what it's about. And he just starts telling me about his mom telling him that, when you fill out an application, head of household, and he said, you may be the head of household, but there's also a neck and you're not getting anywhere if the neck doesn't move, right?
Right.
And so I know that he has been taught by his mom in a godly way. And then he starts telling me that he's just playing the field and he's doing this because women today are just, he doesn't know what women today want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. It's just absolutely true. Okay. So, and his name is Jesse, by the way. And he just said, do you ever have people come on your podcast and talk? And I said, yes. Would you like to do that? And you can express how you feel. And he goes, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to do that. So anyway, we exchanged numbers. I gave him my business card. And when I went up to pay for my rocks, 10 minutes later, he handed me this and he said, I just want to tell you, I thought about this on my drive back up here. And he said, I want to support you all I can. And he said, I'm going to tell people about you. And he said, and I'm going to pay for your rocks today. It was only 40 pounds anyway.
How sweet.
No, I mean, it was just like, but again, it was confirmation.
Sure, of what you should be doing.
Yes. And then I had to go back down there a couple of hours later because to get some smaller rocks for another area that I forgot to get. And he saw my car. He ran back up there and he goes, has your podcast, when is it going to be on? When is it going to be on? And so in front of all of these women, he said this. And so I said, well, it's not going to be on until next week. And so they just said, you have a podcast? I said, yes. And they said, what's it about? Life, love, and relationships with a focus on marriage and family. And they said, oh my gosh, I want to listen to it. What is it? And I told them, and they all wrote it down. I'm not kidding.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I told them about the movie 1984. They wrote that down too. And people need to go look at that movie. That's very interesting. Have you ever seen it?
I think so.
1984 is about the government, Big Brother controlling our minds.
Yeah.
So Anyway, I'm just saying that people may not like what I have to say or what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do everything that I can to help make some sense
Right.
of why get married. Why get married? Because it's a good thing. Why have families? Because it's a good thing. Why stay married? Because it's the best thing to do for everyone.
For everyone. I can see you standing in front of your picture and I can see you telling God, yes, I'll do this at all cost. Because it really was at all cost for you. I totally get it.
It still is. And I'm about to, it makes me very emotional.
Sure.
But somebody's got to do it.
Somebody. And here you are, blessed.
Why not Cinderella?
That's right.
So,
well, this has been an awesome chat. And I think we just need to stay on course with this next week and keep moving forward with why get married?
Why get married? Because that's all about life, love, relationships, marriage, and family.
That's right. See you next time.
Bye.
If you enjoyed the show today, share it with your friends so they can listen in to our conversations about life, love, and relationships. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Cinderella Chats, the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. We look forward to our Tuesdays together and know you will too.